Good Friday evening, guys. How's it been going? Um, it's been a rough couple of weeks, so we're gonna try to get back into a better schedule here. Welcome. I'm DeRebiAmaris, and we do have a pretty good little thing to talk about. Donna Adelson and her motion, not only for a new trial, but to also interview jurors. So if that sounds like something that you would like to talk about, please continue. But do me a favor, please, if you will, and that would be to hit that like button. If you're not a member, or not a member, but a subscriber, please subscribe to the channel. That helps us out, with the algorithm. Uh, don't be scared to share our content either. But yeah, please hit the like, subscribe, because we love to have you here. Um, let's sort this thing out. Um, whew, lots of stuff, but I can honestly say that I saw this one coming. I saw part of this coming. As soon as I saw, and I'm not going to use the jurors' actual names because I just think that that's, they do have, even though these jurors have, announced their names, publicly, I'm still going to refer to them by their juror numbers just for the simple fact. As we all know, juror number 7 ended up being the jury foreman. And as soon as I saw where she had taken to TikTok to tell her story about how, she was so happy to be a juror and how she wanted to be the jury foreman. But the thing about it is, regardless of that, the way that she went through the whole process of everything that they did, the many different ways that they voted, I just knew, even though there's nothing wrong with what she did at all, that's her right. And it also, to me, if there were any doubters out there as far as the voting was concerned, it should have quelled those doubts. But I just knew that Donna Adelson's defense team was going to grab a hold of that like a catfish on a worm. And I was right. Now, I have to say though, the motion itself, does it touch on the first? Of course, the first thing that it touches on, is the fact that they are asking the judge for permission to interview 3 jurors. The 2 jurors that appeared on Surviving the Survivor, and the jury foreman that did her own TikTok thing. They are claiming that the jury foreman did a TikTok post during the trial that has since been deleted from her TikTok account. However, they say that they have said TikTok post on a flash drive to provide to the courts. Now, we have all gone back through her TikTok account, and she did one TikTok post before the trial started, kind of. It was basically when she found out that she had been picked for the jury. All she did was a post stating how happy she was to be able to be on a jury. She didn't state what trial it was or anything of that nature. There were no conversations held in the comment section about it or anything like that. And that was totally legal. Because when you become a juror, yes, you can't. The deal is you can't talk about the case. You can't talk about the case to anybody, not your husband, not your sister, not your pastor. You can't talk about it on a telephone. You can't talk about it in a text message. You can't post anything about it on social media. However, that particular, TikTok post, there was absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, she was just posting that she was happy to be able to be on a jury, and for the matter of that, that post is still there in her TikTok account. We looked at it today. It has not been deleted. So I'm really not sure if possibly there's another TikTok post maybe that they're talking about. I'm really not sure. But that particular post, A, there was nothing wrong with it. And B, it has not been deleted. So that's the big question there. But the defense team is trying to use the jury misconduct deal as far as she's concerned. Now, I'm going to kind of go through and we'll talk about each one of the jurors that they have concerns with, okay? The first ones, the two that were on Surviving the Survivor. You had juror number 6. And he went through and he was talking about how, impressed he was with the way that they handled voting. Said that that there was even cases where there was a couple of things that they all didn't agree on. And due to that fact, the jury foreman, juror number 7, made sure that they went through and discussed everything. And if, jurors needed to look at evidence again or, read testimony again or anything like that, she made sure that that happened. And so, he said there was a couple of things that they all didn't, agree on, but due to the way that the jury foreman handled everything, they were able to work all of that out. One of the biggest, as far as testimony was concerned, Rob Adelson's testimony, he found him to be very credible. Said, he has no motive, to lie. He hasn't been close with the family for years. Just found him a very good witness. Didn't have too much regard for the jailhouse snitches. Also found all the metadata that the state had obtained, all the text messages and getting the WhatsApp messages and all that. He found that all very credible. The evidence that they produced with the bump, found that was very helpful. The one thing that he did mention, though, was the fact that DanMarkel's license plate was the only license plate number that was written in Donna Adelson's day planner. And in his words, not even Wendy's license plate was in her day planner, but Dan's was. Well, they're kind of hitting on that because of the fact that the state did not enter into evidence the entire day planner. They only entered into evidence that his license plate number was found in her day planner. Therefore, when Donna's defense team got up to cross-examine that's all that they could talk about. They couldn't, talk about anything else that may have been in the day planner. So that's part of what he said during this interview that they have, brought up is the whole day planner thing. They can only speak to what the state's introduced. And for the most part, as far as Donna Adelson's demeanor during the trial, he said he just completely ignored her the whole time. So we didn't have any issues there. Let's see. Let's just kind of, well, I've got notes upon notes upon notes like I always do. So let's move on to juror number 5. Juror number 5 from Tallahassee. Now, something that concerned her defense team was that he did say that he watched her reactions, but he didn't give them any significant weight, as they aren't supposed to. She was admonished a couple of times. However, and according to her, defense team, she did nothing during the trial to interrupt trial or anything of that nature, and didn't interrupt the proceedings, and that they were concerned because of the fact that Donna had been told, don't show any emotion. They're kind of looking at this guy as saying, okay, you watched her reactions, but you didn't give him any weight. So, are you saying, they're trying to basically bring up the fact. So are you saying the fact that she had no emotions because she was told not to have any emotions? Did you hold that against her? Did that not have any weight to you? Or when she began to cry when the coroner got up on the stand, are you talking about those emotions? I mean, which, they're not supposed to hold any weight. But the fact that this particular juror did mention her facial expressions and emotions, however, they have, talked about that. No sympathy, no empathy. But some of the other things that he did, talked about that really helped him with his decision. Again, the metadata was big. Again, Rob Adelson's testimony was very big. Let's see, what else? Talking about how they brought up the code talk. He's like, nobody talks in code. The only people who talk in code are people who are trying to hide something, so that was a big thing for him. The wet money, the wet money was something for him. Again, the whole bump, that was, and something that, and he also brought this up, a defendant's bad character cannot be considered when you're considering whether or not they are innocent or guilty of the crime. And he made the comment that she offered prescription medications to a recovering addict. And he's speaking of one of the, jailhouse snitches. And he said that he considered, that she, obviously isn't too good of a person if she was going to do that. Now, he also, like I said, did kind of, he brought that around with the fact, I didn't consider that during the, deliberation process. We strictly went on evidence. However, he was just making that comment as his observation of Donna Adelson. He made it very clear that the only things that they used to, in their deliberations was the evidence that they had been given. Something else that he did make a comment about that her defense team has also brought up is that they wanted to listen to Rivera's testimony again. And they attempted to listen to it again, but they tried several times. However, they couldn't get it to play. Now, they did not ask for help from anybody. Like, they didn't knock on the door and say, hey, this machine's not working or anything like that. But whatever it was, though, they were able to just discuss through it. However, he did make the comment during his interview on Surviving the Survivor that was some evidence that they did want to listen to again, but could not because they couldn't get it to play on the machine. Now, he also kind of made a comment, and he said after about 4 or 5 days, he was pretty sure of what he thought, but he still considered all the evidence all the way to the end of the trial. Let's see, what else did he say? He again talked about how juror number 7, AE Jerry Foreman, did an excellent job. He said that all of the jurors respected one another. And if they needed to go back and look at more info, they did that. He brought up the fact that one thing that he was really impressed with as far as their deliberations was the jury foreman having them all do an anonymous vote, and they went point by point, on count by count. And basically, if there was not a unanimous vote on each point under each count, then they stopped and they discussed it. So they made a very, very informed decision. I mean, he said in his words, the jury was solid. They had no questions, no doubts. But like I said, just these little few things, her defense team is kind of picking out in their motion there. Now we get to juror number 7, AE, the jury foreman. And as I said before, they are stating that there is a TikTok post that she made during trial that she has since deleted from her account. However, they have this TikTok post on a flash drive and will be providing it to the judge. Now, like I said, today we went back through her TikTok account. All we saw was the TikTok post that she made, just talking about how excited that she was to have been picked for a jury. And that was it. There were no names, no nothing, not even in the comments. But the only thing that we kind of, have been, she tended, even the TikTok that she did after the trial was over. That TikTok, you could tell that she was very interested in Wendy. I mean, she focused a lot of stuff, and she said this was Donna's trial, not Charlie's trial, not Catherine McBanaw's trial, not, Rivera's trial, nobody else's trial, but Donna's. But, you could tell by the way that she talked, she specifically brought up, Wendy's odd behavior, the fact that she said she barely knew, Katie McBanawa, but yet they have pictures together on a beach. Again, her hiding her boyfriend, Jeff, from the family. And again, she also stated that Rob Adelson's testimony was very, very important for her. And something else, when Rob Adelson testified to the fact that Donna Adelson had called him the day after the incident and told him that the perpetrators had knocked on his window, asked him if he was, DanMarkel, and upon him saying he was, they shot him. She also, in her mind, she was like, how would she have known that? I mean, that's not something that anybody would have known at that point in the investigation. This is the day after it happened, But anyway, and here's the thing that they also, that Donna Adelson's defense team is bringing up, the presumptive precedent, basically this can go like one of two ways. And they're kind of asking that, in a way, the judge be like the 13th juror, so to speak. And he himself, they're asking him, they're basically stating that the evidence that's been presented is enough evidence to convict this person of this crime. However, when you look at the weight of the evidence, is it really enough to garner a guilty verdict? And they are kind of asking the judge in this case, Judge Everett, to kind of weigh in on that a little bit as kind of like the, so to speak, 13th juror. But he can do, he can either, when he gets all of this, and what I'm reading to you, I mean, it really, it turned into crazy town really, really quickly. Once you got through all of the juror stuff, then you started getting into literally nitpicking this, nitpicking that, nitpicking witnesses, why he should not think that this witness should not be credible, why this witness's testimony should be thrown out. They weren't given enough time to, at one point actually said that he showed favoritism to the state, because he did not give them time to, in matters where they needed to discuss, things with their client, they were given a lunch hour. Whereas basically the whole trial, in their words, ran on the state's time frame. Okay, if the state couldn't be there till 9 o'clock one morning, okay, court wouldn't start until 9 o'clock. If the state couldn't be there till 10:30 one morning, well, we weren't starting till 10:30. However, when it came, they were saying when it came to them, though, there was no lenience given there. They weren't given time. It got really, really nitpicky. And really, to be honest, I mean, again, I have to say, the bottom line being that this defense did not have a good case. They did not have a good case. Okay. And so everybody, every person who's convicted is going to give their reasons as to why they should have a new trial. Okay. And the judge is going to read all of those reasons. And, the majority of the time it's dismissed. And then it just goes on to the appellate, court. In this case, though, they are asking if they can interview all of these 3 jurors. Now, I really, to be honest with you, don't even see him granting them that, because there's really, I can understand them saying, oh, well, we have this issue with this juror, what this juror said, and we have this issue with what this juror said, and then we really don't know what TikTok they're talking about, because as I said before, we didn't see where any TikToks had been deleted from her account. So unless this is a TikTok that she put up and they were able to find it without anybody else seeing it, them download it, and then her realize, oh, maybe I shouldn't have posted that, and delete it that quick. I mean, I just don't see that happening. I mean, I just don't. It's just, and using, of course, talking about how this, they had an issue with the way that the way the state was spinning things. It's just really not a good, it's not a good motion. I mean, their motion, it's not worded very well. I mean, you are telling the court that he was showing favoritism. Then at actually one point, we begin to actually talk about the jurors themselves, and talk about how the fancy presentations, may have influenced the jury. And they're speaking of the PowerPoint presentation that the state presented, which was nothing more than a timeline. Okay. Was it fancy? No, it was not fancy at all. I mean, you want to talk about fancy, we would have, Cirque du Soleil dancing and jazz hands and things of that nature. No, it wasn't that. It was a very good PowerPoint presentation that supplied a timeline that the jury could actually look at and see that wasn't confusing. That's what it was. However, they literally called them fancy presentations that may have influenced the jury. In other words, those simple-minded folk on the jury, And that's a recurring that is a recurring theme that I find with Jackie Harris, is that she has this attitude that everyone in the courtroom other than her is simple-minded folk or dummies, on top of the fact that she literally thought that she knew her case was weak. I mean, heck, she knew that. She knew her case was weak. She's been a judge, okay? She was a former judge. She knew that she had a weak case, okay? Why is that a weak case? Well, I think, in my opinion, I'm going to opine on that right quick. I think it's because they let Donna run the show. They let Donna run the show a little bit too much. But when you're doing that kind of work, it's not like when you're the prosecutor. And when you're the prosecutor, what you say, this is how we're going to do this is how we're going to do it. Well, when you're, on the other side, you kind of do have to, that's your client. And so if they say, no, we're not going to talk about this, or no, we're not going to do this, you kind of do have to, but still, it does not mean that you can't walk in there one day and say, hey, look, do you want to go to jail for the rest of your life, or do you want to have a chance at getting out? If so, you need to listen to me, because clearly from the other 3 trials that have happened that have gained convictions on all, you don't really know as much as you thought you knew about committing crimes, Miss Adelson. So how about listening to us for a second? But, and she clearly thought that at the end of the day, by slamming her hands repeatedly on the podium and yelling at the jury in her closing statements, I mean, I think that she somehow thought that would take away some of the weakness and make it look like it was strong, because she was yelling with a strong voice and beating with strong hands on the podium. I don't know. It was crazy. But yeah, but like I said, I mean, in this motion, you have made statements that the judge was being, showing favoritism to the state. And then there was, and I didn't see any of this, and I watched this whole trial. It was brought up that there were people in the gallery making faces at people on the stand, trying to get their attention. That there was laughing happening, and no one was called out for that by the judge. Now, I do remember a couple of times throughout this trial that some comments were made, most of the time by the judge himself, and everybody laughed, including Donna Adelson's defense team. But at no point do I ever remember comments being made where people in the gallery were laughing, the state was laughing, the judge was laughing. The only people who weren't laughing were Donna Adelson and her defense team. No, I don't know. I don't remember any of that at all. But that has been brought up. I mean, it's long, and just, I mean, basically what you're looking at is a defense team who had a very, very weak case. Like I said before, and as a defense attorney, and you're defending a woman who is on trial for the murder of her son-in-law, amidst all this other things, okay, we've got gangs involved, we've got payments, we've got literal money laundering happening, meaning like literally washing money, all these things happening, and you are going to get up there, and the first time that you address the victim in this case, which was DanMarkel, you're going to address him as Danny, like you've known him your entire life. No, ma'am, that's disrespectful. That is disrespectful. That is showing that you are speaking of this victim as a Danny boy. You know, Danny boy. No. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, you have a defense that was weak at best from the very beginning. Now, I mean, like I said, I knew that they were going to jump on it, as they say, jump on it, when the TikTok thing came out, but she's done nothing wrong. Again, there is the TikTok that they say that they have that none of us know anything about. But everything that the state's spinning, and their presentations, and I mean, basically talking down to the jury like they're stupid. Y'all stupid people fell for it. That's basically what they're saying. They got up there with, their spinning stories and with their presentations on and all that, and y'all stupid, simple-minded people fell for it. That's the gist of what you get out of this motion. It's a weak case. They're just trying to pick apart anything that they can. I don't believe that the judge is going to grant them I don't. He might grant them an interview with judge number 7, the foreman. That is, if what's on their flash drive that they're talking about is something different than what's on her TikTok right now. Which, like I said, I mean, I don't know what it would, because I mean, it's crazy, but if they have something that we have not seen on that flash drive, he may give them an interview with her. But none of this information, I mean, basically they're asking him to look at all of this, information that was given, all of this evidence, and to agree, yes, this amount of evidence would convict this person. But if you look at each testimony and each piece of evidence, the weight of that evidence does not garner a conviction. She's asking the judge to kind of do that. I don't think that's going to happen either. So I don't think they're going to get anything. They might, like I said, get an interview. If they do get an interview with that juror, then you still, I mean, all of this also hinders on the prosecution's response to all of this as well. So there would just be another hearing. I think that more than likely it's all just going to be dismissed and probably bumped to the appellate level. I would just say, in the future, if you're the jury foreman, there's nothing wrong with what she did. But if it's a high profile case like this, you might want to wait a little bit longer before I don't know. Then again, I don't want to say that, because she did nothing wrong. She did absolutely nothing wrong. In nowhere does it say that she can't be on social media during the trial. She can be on social media during the trial. What she cannot do is seek out information about this case on social media. She can't talk about this case on social media or anything like that. That's not what she did. So, that's just, but yeah, It's a long motion. And I mean, they started throwing case law after case law. Look at this case. In this case, you had to prove this, this, and this, and then in this case, one of them. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the case of the guy who lived in Florida. Was married, and his best friend started having an affair with his wife, and the best friend and the wife came up with this whole plan where the best friend and the husband were going to go out fishing, and somehow he was going to return saying that he fell overboard and they never would be able to find him. And basically that's not what went down. He shot him and buried him, but it all individually, it came out basically. They even tried to use some of that case because part of her defense in that the wife's defense in that particular case was that she didn't know that he was going to shoot him and bury him. Just like they tried to say, Donna did not know that Charlie was going to have DanMarkel murdered. She thought it was extortion, things like that. Basically, long, drawn out, nitpicking, sounding like a little spoiled child at the end of the day, really. Again, when you're back around to you're showing the state favoritism and, damn them and their, the way that they are spinning things and their stupid little fancy presentations that them simple-minded jurors fell for, that kind of thing. That was the whole mood, I guess, of it. Yeah, I don't think it's going to get anywhere, but it is very, I have to say this though, very entertaining, and we'll get to see as we go down the line what happens with it. But yeah, I don't think I don't think that they're going to get what they wanted. I mean, is this surprising? I mean, should we be surprised by this? Absolutely not. I mean, their case was very weak. And so they're doing whatever they can do to get something, to try to get something. I don't think it's going to work, but we'll see. But anyway, and God bless the FBI. Tell you that. I mean, the FBI, with that, they knew exactly what buttons to push. I mean, because it wasn't Donna that, I mean, it was not Donna that broke all this open. It was Charlie. And why was that? Because it's like the FBI with that bump, with their little bump thing, they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what to say, how to say it. And what did that do? It turned the pipe, the little, the nozzle on, the little outside nozzle where you turn your hose pipe on, the water just started coming out. They knew exactly how to spin that nozzle so that he just started spewing whatever. And he did. And so they had him profiled to a T, obviously. They obviously had him profiled to a T, and they knew exactly what they needed to do to get him to talk, and talk he did. So, of course, they wanted to, argue about the handwriting and blah, 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 Well, I mean, you presented a video that had no sound that showed two people sitting down, and guess what? The note was in Donna's handwriting. Was it not? Yes, it was. So, I mean, anyhow, yeah, it was great. I mean, it was very, if nothing else, it was entertaining, and we will see what happens later on down the road. The next thing, like I said, that will happen, we have to wait on the state's response now to this. and we will see how far it goes from there. But I hope that I hope that they stream it and that we get to see it all, because I love this judge. He's awesome. All right, guys. I am working on a couple of things. Kelsey Fitzsimmons. We will be talking about Kelsey Fitzsimmons, because that is absolutely another atrocity out of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Just yes, we will be working on that's something that we are going to be talking about in the coming weeks. Going to throw in a little bit of Halloweeny stuff here and there, and some other things. So I hope that you guys have had, a great week. It is Friday. I'll probably talk to you more over the weekend. But as I always say, well, before I say it, please do not forget to hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We'd love to have you. And share, comment. Let's get conversations started. Change does not happen when mouth stays closed. Y'all have fun out there. Please, please, please be safe. And always know that you are loved. I love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.